Hey, and welcome back to Clean Air on Air, the weekly news roundup brought to you by the Clean Air Council. This week, we're doing a special report on SCOTUS' ruling on West Virginia versus EPA and what that means for Pennsylvania. Let's get into it. Last week, the Supreme Court ruled that the EPA doesn't have the authority to use generation shifting as a system of emission reduction under Section 111 of the Clean Air Act. Generation shifting means moving electricity production from higher emitting to lower emitting sources. On one hand, shifting from coal-fired power to gas-fired power, and then, more significantly, shifting from any fossil-based generation to clean energy sources. This would reduce carbon pollution and is an approach embraced by state agencies as a means to cut greenhouse gas emissions from the power sector. This approach was part of the Clean Power Plan, an Obama-era proposed EPA program that was procedurally blocked by the U.S. Supreme Court back in 2016, while a lower court was considering a challenge to it. Because of this delay, the Clean Power Plan never took effect during the Obama administration and was ultimately repealed and replaced with Trump EPA's so-called Affordable Clean Energy Rule, which would have actually been worse than doing nothing. This was challenged as well and also never took effect. And then, of course, Trump was voted out of office. The day before President Biden was sworn in January 2021, the D.C. Circuit struck down the ACE rule as arbitrary and capricious and remanded the action back to EPA. The Biden EPA declared it had no intent to resurrect the Clean Power Plan, the goals of which had already been met, and would instead be working to develop new power sector carbon rules. West Virginia versus EPA challenged the Clean Power Plan. It was procedurally weird, challenging a rule that never took effect and doesn't exist. But the conservative Supreme Court took the case anyway. The Clean Air Council became a party to the case, being one of several nonprofits in the case, and we argued that there was no case or controversy for the court to decide. The court should have dismissed the case and waited to hear a challenge to Biden EPA's regulation once it's finalized. But here we are. So here's what the ruling means. The decision impacts how the EPA can regulate greenhouse gas emissions and prevents the EPA from setting emission standards based on a generation shifting approach. Essentially, SCOTUS took away one of the many tools in the EPA's toolbox for combating climate change. The decision also solidified what is known as the major questions doctrine. This is a relatively new rule that the Supreme Court made up, allowing it to strike down regulations it considers to be big deals if Congress doesn't super explicitly authorize a federal agency to publish the regulation in question. This will make it harder in the future for federal agencies to accomplish anything that the conservative Supreme Court justices don't like. Here's what Justice Kagan wrote in dissent about the 6 unelected justices and the majority with lifetime appointments just did. The court appoints itself, instead of Congress or the expert agency, the decision maker on climate policy. I cannot think of many things more frightening. So here's what it means for Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania Air Pollution Control Act gives the Pennsylvania DEP the authority to reduce harmful carbon pollution, so West Virginia versus EPA doesn't affect that authority. Pennsylvania also has an environmental rights amendment in our state constitution that not only guarantees citizens a right to a clean and healthy environment, but requires the government to conserve and maintain it. The decision doesn't affect Pennsylvania from joining or participating in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. So good news on the home front. Now let's talk about what needs to happen next, because this is where the work begins. We need climate leadership on all levels of the Pennsylvania government, but most importantly on the state level. We need to be electing environmental champions. We need to be focusing on a rapid transition to clean, affordable, and reliable energy. Solar and other renewable energies will reduce carbon pollution, create jobs, and make utilities cheaper in the long run. The time is now for climate action.